Hello, this is Michelle Naomi Francis Williams. Hi, everybody. This is second part two. Today is Friday, the 28th of January, 2022. I'm just adding this because I've made part one. I've been making a lot of series to these videos because there's a lot to explain over the course of 51 years. This is a short message to my son. It's part two, but it's going to be a short part. Mityrae, Anthony, Francis, Breckenridge Brooks. My son's name is Mityrae. It's a Islamic name, Islamic African Yoruba name. I just want to say, Mityrae, I'm going to explain in the other series, the other parts I'm going to do to these videos. I'm going to try to do a part every day. Tayo, who I'm talking about, is my last daughter, my fourth child's father. His proper name is Omatayo Awoni. He's a Nigerian British man. Mityrae, Tayo raped me twice. There was another occasion, but I'm not going to mention that at the moment. That's the one he applied for £5,000, and the Metropolitan Police offered him £5,000 in compensation, and he accepted it. He took a declaration, and made a false declaration in order to accept the £5,000. He knew the Metropolitan Police were just trying to undermine my case because they're actually liable to me and they owe me more than £5,000. That's why they give him the pittance, But I'm not going to go into that right to this minute. That's going to be over the next course of the week, leading into the next week and so forth. Mityrae, my son, I love you a million, billion, zillion, trillion times. You and the rest of my children mean so much to me, and you are my only son, and you're so special. You have a divine blessing. You have a purpose. Please do not stray from the path of your spiritual destination. I watched it, funnily enough. Everybody listen to part one of this video. Yeah. With the same title. This is part two. That's part one. I was talking about it. The topic is mainly about my son. It's a message to my son directly because I don't know where he is. I don't know how to contact him for the past 22 years, since he was 18 months. So basically, I've had to put this on video. Mityrae, do not lose. Do not miss your blessing. Do you know I watched the film in 2019? Yeah, I watched the film in 2019 on the TV at my house in Morris Road, Poplar. Obviously, I moved yesterday, or the day before I moved. Yesterday, actually. No, the day before, to this new place. I'm no longer there. In 2019, I watched the film, and coincidentally enough, the film is based in Jamaica. Yeah? Your origins, my origins, our origins in Africa, really, but the film is based in Jamaica anyway. And funnily enough, the other coincidence is it's based on a true story in Jamaica. This actually took place in these sequence of events were real. They actually took place in Jamaica, and they made a film out of it. Now, I'm going to break it down really quickly. Mityrae, this is a message for you. Mityrae Anthony Francis Brooks. Mityrae Anthony Francis Breckenridge Brooks. In the film, towards the end of the film, basically it was based on the ex the aftermath of the uprisings in Jamaica, the famous uprising again a rebellion, rebellion against the slavery, the transatlantic slavery. The slaves in Jamaica held a big rebellion and uprising. It's very famous in Jamaica. I can't remember what it's called, but this film was based on that. And in this film, the slaves rebelled. They said, "Fuck it." Basically, I'll cut a long story short. They said, "We're not going to be a slave anymore. We've had enough. You know, you're just working as like a dog, and all we asked is for Sunday off." And the white slave owners refused. He refused to give them the one day off. So they said, "Well, fuck it. We're not going to work at all then. If you're not going to give us one day off, just so we can spend with our families, yeah, and have one day's rest, we're not going to work at all." So they refused to work, and basically this started the uprising because the white slave masters turned on the slaves and burnt down all their belongings and nearly killed them. So they had to flee into the bush. In the bush, a lot of them died. There was no food, no housing. The terrain was very harsh, and they got sick with caught all kind of disease, flu. You know, things like flu and all kinds of stuff. Basically, and most of them died, and the few that were remaining were in a really bad state. And we're talking about the people that died, even include children and babies. They died, and elderly and disabled. They died in very bad conditions because the white slave masters forced them into the bush with no food. They wouldn't allow them to have no food, no medicines, no nothing. And they spread all kinds of things there. So the people got sick and died, most of them. So the few remaining, one of them that was remaining, I'm cutting a long story short, in this film, it's a very true, based on a very true story in Jamaica. This is your history, Mityrae. I want you to learn from this because I love you so much. You're my entire world. I love you. I'd give my heart, my kidney. I'd die for you. I'd die for any one of my children. I love you, Mityrae. So, in this film, one of the persons that survived was a black female, a black woman. Now, I'm just cutting a long story short. She survived, but she was in a very bad way. She was old by now, and she was homeless on the street in Jamaica, in the rough part. She had no money. I'm talking about this was like a couple of 100 years ago. It happened about a couple of 100 years ago. So she was in a very bad way. She had no money. She was malnourished. She was crippled with sickness and illness, you know, ailments of when you're getting old and you suffer extreme hardship and poverty. So she was unrecognizable, and she was actually a very beautiful, dark-skinned, black African woman. And she was a slave. She was born into slavery in Jamaica. So when she was old now, she was always the white people who were running Jamaica. We're talking about 200 years ago, roughly, or something like that, when the slave rebellion was in that time. Could have been more than 200, I can't remember. Basically, she was old and decrepit on the street, living poverty, no food, no money to do nothing. They wouldn't allow her to work to earn money because they wanted to penalize all the slaves until they dead. And the ones that were remaining, they penalized them even more. They wouldn't allow them to earn any money. They wouldn't give them any money. So they didn't have no food. So basically, she had to steal. So when she steal the food, she was only stealing food to eat. They kept arresting her and dragging her in and out the court system. So one day, I can't remember exactly what happened, but there happened to be a very well-respected, dignified, very, very well educated and extremely well privileged black man. And he was a young man, very young man in Jamaica. And he had on fine clothes, a suit and him tie and a beautiful skin. And he was so beautiful, very good looking, dark skinned black Jamaican man. He was very young. And he was dressed up in his finery, in his clothes. This was normal for him. And he was very privileged. He was very wealthy. He had a lot of money. He had a big house. He had a beautiful family, a beautiful wife, children. And she was actually in the poor part. He'd done very well for himself. He was lucky in life in Jamaica. You know, favor had shined on him. So she was in the poor part suffering, and she was an old lady, a lot older than him. She was one of them who fought against the slavery that gave him the opportunity to live a wealthy, privileged life. So basically, the story basically was he'd only got that opportunity because of those slaves that had died and rebelled against slavery. That's the only reason how he managed to get that opportunity, because he was a lot younger generation. So because of their fight and their struggle, the older ones died and suffered. But fortunately for some, they actually benefited out of those slaves who rebelled. Yeah, as they were slaves descendants themselves. So basically, this was in Jamaica, and it was based on a very true story. This really happened. And I want you to listen to Mityrae. Don't click off the YouTube video and say I'm talking rubbish. Listen very carefully. People are watching you. There's people in high powers. Your blessing is there. You can look at this situation with your mother, and you might think, oh, this is really this terrible situation. It's really terrible. It's really this. It's really embarrassing. Number one, I'm not guilty anyway, and I'm fighting it. But number two, the other thing is, you might think it's embarrassing. You might think it's terrible. But it's actually your blessing in disguise. That's why I'm asking you to listen very carefully, because what I'm explaining to you is not just a story. It's a real story. It really happened in Jamaica. So he happened to be walking past in his finery, and he saw this old lady bend up and twist up and turn up and mash up and run down. And she was in a situation in the court, basically. So he looked at her and he felt so much compassion to see a black woman that could be his mother. You know, that's how he looked at it. He didn't know anything. He just looked at her and he said, oh, to himself, he said, that could be my mother. So he looked at her. She was terrible. She was dirty. She was stink. She never washed because she never had no clothes, no money, no soap, no nothing. She was dirty and stink. She was in the gutter. She was on the floor. She was homeless. She looked like a mad woman. She was walking around, twist up and turn up and bend up and hug up and, you know, with a walking stick, and a hopped over. And he went over to her and he rescued her in the court, because the white people were penalizing her and all kinds of stuff. So he went over to her in the court, and I think he paid a sum so that she could be free from the criminal offense, which was something ridiculous, like stealing a bit of food so she can eat. There was no pension. There was no nothing. Yeah. She had no family that she knew of. She didn't know her family in it. She didn't know where they were or if they were alive. So what happened is he rescued her. So he took her out of the court after he paid her penalty, because she had no money to pay the penalty for stealing the food in the first place, else she would have bought the food in the first place. So after he paid the penalty, she got released. So I think they released him into his care. So he said to her, he looked at her. She was dirty, disheveled, stink. She never washed for years. I'm talking about years, not even months, years. Her hair was mud, her eye twist up, everything twist mash ups, yeah? He said, I would like you to come to my house. He was very well spoken, very well educated, very wealthy. He had a lot of dignity, a lot of piety, a lot of humble, a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding, a lot of, you know, rational, everything. Respect. The respect was so high in him. He was a true gentleman, a real man. And he looked at the woman and he said, I'm not going to just leave you in the street like that. I want you to come to my house and live with me and my wife and my children. No, actually, he said, I can't remember now. I think what happened, I can't remember. But anyway, I break a long story short. That same woman Do you know, and it's based on a true life story, that turned out to be his biological mother. He was adopted at birth. She gave birth while she was in the wild, living in the bush. She was raped and she gave birth to a son. And because they were penalizing the slaves that rebelled, had they were the main, the core people who rebelled, made the biggest rebellion in Jamaica against the slave trade. So they suffered them so much, and they took away her baby to spite her, just to spite her. Racism. They took away her baby in Jamaica and adopted the baby. And it so happens the baby was adopted to a black family, and the black family were quite well-to-do. So he had the best education, the best standard of living, the best upbringing, and they happened to give him a true love. And he grew up with a true love, respect, and they instilled the best into him, and they produced a very outstanding gentleman. So basically, it turned out that that was his mum, his real mother. And when she looked at him, she was like, she was doing a face like this. She couldn't even believe that was her son. She was like, whoa, you know, because one minute she was all bent up, and then when he said, I'm your son, mum, he called her mummy. He said, mummy, I'm your son. And she looked up like this. She was frightened. She couldn't believe that was her son. She didn't even know her son was alive. Or dead. She didn't know. So he took her home. He never scorned her once. He never questioned her. Nothing. He never hesitated. He never scorned. He just scooped her up and kissed her all over and hug her. I said, Mommy, I miss you. I love you so much. And he took her home and he took her into his house. He lived in a big mansion house in Jamaica, in the privileged part. And he had a beautiful black wife with a beautiful grandchildren. And he called his children and he said, come and meet grandma. And they hug her. And basically, the long of the short of the story, they fix her up, they wash her, they scrub her, they comb her hair, they put her clean, fresh clothes, and they give her her own room and bed. She never slept in a bed for decades and decades and decades. She had her own room, luxury bed, first-class treatment. She was treated like a queen. She had all her grand around, run around her. And she actually was very, very intelligent. She wrote a book in her son's home while she remained in her son's home, in her son's care. And she was actually happened to be a very intelligent, articulated woman herself. So her son actually inherited the intelligence from his mother, even though she was a down and out, because she ended up that way because she was opposing the racism and the injustice and the slavery. And she got the brunt end of the stick, and she never had no opportunity. But God blessed her son. He was like the chosen. He was given the blessing. And then he turned around and blessed his mother. He never scorned his mother. He never said, oh, shut your mouth, keep your mouth down, keep your raise up your voice. You are disturbed in it. He never disrespected mother in no way. You understand? Even though he saw her in that state. And he took her home, cleaned her up, fixed her up. His wife embraced her, you know, and she wrote down her story. This is a very true story. It's in Jamaica. She wrote books about the whole thing, her whole life story, and everything she'd experienced and what really happened in her life. And her son and her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren and so forth were able to read that story and learn how his mother suffered and the real true reasons and what happened, and that she was really a victim. She'd never done nothing really. She never done nothing wrong really in her life. She was really a slave rebellion against an apartheid regime, slave system. That's all she did, was opposing the injustice, you know. She was just fighting for equality, and that's how she suffered. But because she was she had a true spirit in her, her son was blessed. Then he turned around and blessed his mother. And that's what basically happened. So I'm saying to you, my son, Mityrae, you're my only one son. Do never miss out on your blessing. Powers that be are watching you. They're watching your attitude, your behavior towards your mother. Do never miss out on your divine destiny, your divine blessing. Do not let the devils come and distort you and make you miss out on your blessing, because sometimes situations can look terrible. They can look so bad. They can look so devastating. But in all of that, there lies your blessing. Yeah. The blessing is within you. It's within your spirit. You show a humble and a piety and a love and compassion, and most of all, respect. You show respect. That's your blessing right there. That's your blessing, because that's the divine spirit, that is in you. You are a special being. Yeah. And I said to you, when I spoke to you outside Simone's house, when you kept me outside on the doorstep in the cold, I said to you, you were not born by accident. You were born on purpose. You were born on the 16th of October, 1997, the day a black guy who was also Jamaican, who was the same age as me when I gave birth to you, he died on the 16th of October, 1997, and he had exactly the same name as you. You were not born by accident. You were born on purpose. Never miss out on your divine destiny, your divine blessing. Learn humble, learn piety, and always show respect from whence you came. That in itself, that alone, that in itself and that alone is your blessing. It's how you handle the situation. It's how you perceive your situation. Your blessing is there. Yeah? So, basically, never disrespect your mother and shush and disrespect your mother and be embarrassed to be about your mother. Your divine blessing is right in you. Don't let the devils distort you and teach you bad mind and bad manners and disrespect. Because if you allow them to do that to you and you adopt this culture, yeah, and you get embroiled in politics and get embroiled in that, don't let they want you to. The devil knows who you are. The devil knows you were born on purpose, and they want you to miss out on your divine blessing. Yeah, your divine destiny. They want you to take the wrong path. Please don't get embroiled or involved in any politics at all. God doesn't take sides. God is not left wing. God is not right wing. He doesn't favor any side or from the other. God loves everybody, and God is there for everybody. You show a piety and a humble. Have your goals and your ambitions. Keep a clean and pure heart and a clean spirit. Don't get involved in the rubbish out there that's going on. Don't get involved. Keep your focus on achieving the standards that you were meant to be. Achieving what you were meant to be. Your blessing is in that. Stop getting embroiled in rubbish. Yeah? So, so like I said, you could be a president. You could be an emperor. Yeah? You can rule over lands. Every religion on the planet, every custom on the planet, every culture on the planet will teach you, no care how high you are, how much money you earn, how much people you could have ruled over. Yeah? You must always show humble and piety and respect to your mother and your father. That is your blessing. It's how you behave and your attitude and how you act towards your mother. Remember the story that I told you? I watched that film in 2019 and I thought about how you behaved to me. And I thought, when all odds are against me, you look how you're behaving to your mother. You flash your hand, shush. You make up too much noise for the neighbor. You don't do that to your mother. In that film, he never did that. He could have said, look at you, you dirty and stink. And you're a thief. You're a thief, go ahead. He could never. Something told, that's your mother. There's many people and they have their mother. There's a lot of, and you know why your blessing is in there? Do you know there's a lot of rich, wealthy, famous people who actually have parents of a very humble, modest nature? They come from very humble beginnings. So when a man shows a respect and a humble and a piety and a love and a compassion to his own mother, no matter what the circumstances are, because like I said, I'm not guilty of these things anyway, but that's irrelevant, right? It's irrelevant right now. The point is you and your attitude. Your heart needs to be right. Yeah, your morals and your principles need to be right. Your priorities need to be in order. Yeah. You just never judge your mother like that and your father. A lot of rich, I'll just remind you, Mityrae, Anthony, Francis, Breckenridge, Brooks. There's so many far and wide people who are rich, wealthy, influential, well-to-do. They have parents, mothers and fathers who come from the most humble, modest beginnings, most humble, modest surroundings and backgrounds. That's why everything is in your attitude. Everything based on your blessings of success is in your attitude towards your mother. People are watching, their heart can pour out for you and they will just pour blessings on you, pour blessings on you, pour blessings on you. Yeah? Financially, emotionally, love, relationship, children, house, car, job, business. It's all in your spirit. It's all in your attitude. People who have mothers who are maybe disabled, people who have mothers who may be alcoholics, people who have mothers who may be drunk, people who have mothers who are poverty, people who have mothers who they grew up sowing seed into the soil for a living, picking apples from the tree, going to the river to catch fish, washing clothes in the river, using toilet in bush. You must never have that attitude, because people who have mothers who are in worse condition than me, when they see your attitude towards me, don't want nothing to do with you, because their mothers and their fathers come from even more disadvantaged situation than me. But when a man show love and compassion, their mother could be on the floor sleeping outside in the gutter. Once you show love and respect and humble to your mother, people from all backgrounds, you never know who is who in this life. I'm just letting you know, there's the most richest, the most wealthiest people up there, the most influential. Their mothers, many of them, their mothers come from the most humble, modest, deprived, disadvantaged, abused backgrounds that you will never know to look at them. To look at them and their wealth and their success, you will never know where their parents come from. How their parents probably lived in a shed. They couldn't afford a house. How their parents lived on the street. You don't know how their parents used to sell potato or bag juice to make a living. But how their parents maybe used to clean toilets. How their parents used to sweep the streets. How maybe their parents used to clean chimney and clean windows. You never know where their parents came from. And they always show most of them show respect and love and humble. They will drop down, no care how high they are. They will drop on their knees for their mother and their father. Okay, I love you, my son. Never, I just don't want you to. I'm not interested in me. I just don't want you to miss out on your ordained destiny, on your anointing, and on your blessings upon this earth. I love you. Mityrae, Anthony, Francis, Breckenridge, Brooks, I love you. I love you.